Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle!
The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is campeón! All creatures great and small!
You know, what was the thought process in terms of who you decided to use and who you didn't?
Ever since Sounder at Heart wrote a commentary that we didn't take Come seriously.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes on the Sounder at Heart podcast network. It is Tuesday, November 18th. We are doing this month's mailbag episode and really probably the last mailbag episode of 2025. The next one we do will probably be part of the 2026 season. But anyway, I am joined by Aaron Campo and our producer Lickett. We are going to get into these questions. But before we do all that, Aaron, is the reality of the off season, has it started to set in yet? It's kind of surreal this week, especially.
Yeah, it is, man. This sounds more dramatic than it is, I promise, but I was talking to my therapist about this. Just
there you
about,
go.
you know, like being like, yeah, I have this thing that is like a huge part of my life, and it's the routine of watching the game every week and then doing this show every Tuesday, mostly every Tuesday. And that going away is like, maybe not it's not a bad thing necessarily. Like, it's nice to have a little bit of the break. Obviously, I would have rather had the break a month from now instead of now, but yeah. But it is strange, like, just to have this, like, and I'm sure it's even crazier for you because it's your day job, right? It's your routine. So.
Yeah, you know, I would agree. You know, it went from, you know, a week and a half ago, I felt like I was sort of drowning and I had more things I had to do than I had time to do them. And all of a sudden now I'm sitting here like, oh yeah, I could write, I could spend 2 hours writing the story because I have nothing better to do with my time. And I've been making afternoon plans with people and, you know, socially, I'm not upset at all, but there does to feel this sort of absence of structure right now that feels a little different than in previous years. And I guess maybe the Sounders are out 2 rounds earlier than they were last year. So, you know, that's maybe a big part of it, but it's kind of weird to be this early in November and realizing that there's no more games left. I keep waiting for the Sounders to release the end of season contract decisions that they are, you know, I'm sure now they'll release it tomorrow,
of course,
before this show even comes out. So it'll look like
remember when that was a thing?
It does seem like they're sort of dragging their feet on it a little bit.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? Maybe they're hoping they don't, they can announce some happy news that people would rather hear than
maybe.
Who knows? Probably not, but who knows?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. That's an optimistic way of looking at it, that they think that there's a chance of it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Any reason not to just sort of jump right in? I should also say, before we get into this, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, Full Pull Wines and Hacks and Ferments. But also, this is, as I always like to remind people, if you want to be submitting questions to the mailbag, you have to be in our Discord. And to get into our Discord, you have to be a supporter or above member of Sounder at Heart. So that's the $75 a year level. It's a lot of fun. I think this is a cool little side perk of it, but not maybe the main reason you want to be in our Discord. But it, a lot of lively conversations, even right now, especially in the off season. I think the most value you're going to get out of Discord is in the off season because people are really looking for stuff to talk about.
It's true. We are. Yeah.
Like you can get away with not really, being in the Discord during the season because there's just a steady stream of news, but to get your Sounders fix. But if you really want to get your Sounders fix, you probably got to get in there.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Anyway,
Agree.
What do we got? All
right. We're going to start off with some questions that are sort of, just looking back at the season that was. And the first one is from Look Forward. The Sounders fell short late in games on set piece defending, out brain fart red cards, and post Leagues Cup fatigue. I chalk much of that up to mental fatigue and switching off. Brian's systems are based on offensive and defensive intensity. How can the team improve the mental toughness and resilience?
This is a great question. And I think I keep going back and forth on how much of the Sounders' struggles were this sort of mental toughness issue, because that kind of came up a few times throughout the year. And I don't know if I totally buy that it's a mental toughness issue. Although, I don't know, maybe that's how I think that's in some ways encapsulated by the last game, right? They jump out to a 2-0 lead, they go up a man, and then they give up 2 set piece goals while up a man where they lose marks. When they have an extra player on the field, it's sort of inexcusable. And is that a mental fatigue issue? Is that something else? I don't know what it is. I thought that, it was fun to make fun of Steven Lenhart being the mental skills coach, but I actually thought he did a pretty good job. The players seem to love him. I don't really think it's his problem per se. I don't know. I don't have a good theory here.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where sports are a random number generator sometimes, and I just don't find any of the narratives that you could build from a lot of this to be especially satisfying, and not in a like I don't like that story, so but in a just like it doesn't really track for me so well. Like I think if there's switching off and mental fatigue, like I don't think that they get that goal from Jordan Morris late, against Minnesota to tie it back up, right? Like
exactly.
I have serious questions about the set piece organization, about the set piece tactics, about because I think that's just to me the most plausible explanation for it. The brain fart red cards. I mean, Danny Musovsky has a reputation as being a little bit of a certain way. Nuhu also has I don't think those were necessarily, well, they were unexpected. But if you were going to say, here are some red cards that are going to happen, which guys do you think are most likely to be responsible for them? Nuhu and Danny probably would have been, pretty high on my list of guys.
I mean, if you're going to put together a list of possible ways you could get a red card,
yeah.
The Sounders checked off a lot of those boxes. There was not a good through line to this type. The Georgie Manungu is a great example. It's like this guy rips off his shirt while he's sitting on a yellow card, and he gets a second red or second yellow. Yeah. Like, is that a coaching issue? I don't think it is. I think that's just a player losing track of getting lost in the moment.
Right.
And then they had a couple red cards that were players getting kind of innocuous second yellows. Yeah. I think of Kalani Kosarienzi and Reed Baker Whiting, where it was like, I mean, I guess those are yellow cards, but then the Sounders, you look how many times the Sounders did that to an opponent and then didn't get the red card. So it's such an inconsistent thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely a concern. We talked about this last week, I believe, but the Sounders did give up a lot of leads, but they didn't out and out lose any games from giving up those leads.
Right. They didn't fall apart.
And they also had a lot of leads, I think is the other thing, right? Like, yeah, there weren't that many teams that blew more leads than they did, but there also weren't that many teams that led more games than they did. So, it's kind of a tricky one. I just, I don't know. It's one of those things that feels like a trend and feels like something that should be explainable. But the more I think about it and the more you and I have conversations about it, I just think it's one of those things that feels that way without necessarily having a satisfying explanation for it.
We'll give it some more thought though,
Yeah.
and who knows, maybe by the end of the off season we'll have a good answer for you there. It was a good question.
Yeah.
Just not that we didn't have a satisfying answer. All right, so this is from Eric, and this is a interesting one. What 3 players overperformed their contracts this year, and what 3 players underperformed their contracts? I would personally exclude missed for injury, but this is your choice.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for Eric, by there.
I think you almost have to. Like, can you really blame Paul Arriola for doing his ACL?
Right. Sure. That would be the most underperforming one,
right.
I suppose.
Jordan too, I guess, would fall into that camp. He did play, but he missed a lot of the season. 2 of the 3 overperformed are slam dunk easy, Obed and Danny Musovsky. Obed is not making any money at all. And I think by the end of the year was playing like a borderline all-star. And I know he made the all-star team, but there were maybe political reasons for that. But I think it showed like he is capable of being a best 11 player right now if he can be consistent with his performances. Danny Musovsky, makes what I think was a fair wage for where he's at in his career and what he's done, and he scored 18 goals in all competitions. So those 2 are easy. And Paul Rothrock, I guess, also is quite easy as well. Now that I think about it, he's not making any money either, and he had quite a good year. Underperformed is a little tougher for me. I would say I would probably put Pedro. I mean, I don't think Pedro missed enough time to fall into the exclude, missed for injury. But when he was available, he was mostly pretty good. So maybe he doesn't count. That's a tougher one for me. I don't know.
That is a really tough one because the players at the top end of the, I guess maybe Ferreira, you could maybe argue under, like, even though I thought he was good, I suppose you could argue that at 1.8 million, he didn't put up the numbers you'd expect for a player at 1.8, but really, I don't, maybe Ryan Kent again, but that's mostly injury. Yeah. I don't know that anyone absent injury really was there was no one that I felt really like this was a sunk cost. Right. I can't believe that. And I think that sort of speaks to the really most impressive thing about the Sounders roster is that they got a lot of value out of almost every spot on the roster. We didn't even mention Kalani Kosa-Rienzi, who had 3 goals and 2 assists while making $80,000 as a right back. I think you probably have, 5 to 10 guys on this roster. Kim Keehee, was very good for a player who, was making the league minimum essentially. Jonathan Bell was a perfectly, he was almost making the league minimum. Andrew Tom, we could go like I could name 5 or 10 guys at the bottom end of the Sounders salary scale and say all of them were massive overperformers. Yeah. And then in the high end, I mean, maybe Jordan.
Sure.
He was hurt. So I think Jordan has to, I think you have to include injuries. Otherwise you don't have a list.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think Kent is the only player who I look at and say he played enough for me to have a sense of what kind of contribution he should have had. And but I still think that's unfair to him because he came in and, he hadn't played in forever. Kind of a weird situation.
And he had 5 assists in like 800 minutes.
Right. And he had some games where he looked unplayable.
Which are good numbers.
I think Jesus and Pedro did struggle pretty mightily at the front half of the year. So maybe you could put them in that category, but I just don't have any concerns about either one of them going forward. So, I mean, maybe that's where I land, right? Is it's fair to say, Pedro, Jesus, Jordan underperformed, but not in a way that makes me concerned going forward, because by the end of the year, they'd all either gotten back to health or kind of figured out how they fit into the team and how to be effective. And so that's, not the worst way to come out of it.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, you're up, I guess.
Oh yeah. This one is from Hapaz, I think is how you would say that. With the Sounders playing a lot of games this year, how should they better rotate their lineup?
I think the main thing that we have to look at is at defensive midfielder at the double pivot. Yeah. Although early on in the season, I assure you that will not be happening. If assuming everyone's playing it straight here, Christian Roldan is going to be making a final push to make the U.S. World Cup team. Obed Vargas likely making a push to make the World Cup team. Those guys are going to want to play every single game they can, I assume. And I can't imagine that Brian is going to be inclined to rest either one of them. That's going to be... So I think that's going to be a challenge. I think... And I honestly, other than the double pivot, I thought we did okay at rotating.
Yeah.
Like the Sounders had, a lot of it was forced by injury, but I don't think there were a bunch of injuries that were the cause of overuse. Maybe Jordan early in the season. I think that was maybe the one exception to that is, Jordan does his hamstring in game 9 of all competitions, and he had played in every game up to that point. I think he had played at least 45 minutes in every game. So maybe that's, so maybe Jordan specifically is a player who maybe you try to rotate a little bit more, but I would imagine next year will be easier because, this year they didn't have as much, if they had known Danny Masovsky was going to have the season he had, I suspect he would have gotten more minutes early on in the season.
Yeah, I think that the key thing is Brian doesn't want to break up that defensive midfield pivot, and I think that that's a pretty consistent thing with coaches. Like that's the engine room. It's I think a lot of the time the most important thing to a team's identity and the way they play. But I don't think you're always going to have the luxury of having guys that are that durable in those spots. And so maybe the retort to that is, but we are that lucky right now. And so we should just ride it while we can. But it definitely makes me nervous trying to do that again, to have those two guys play that many minutes. And maybe that's a problem that we won't have to worry about next year because we'll get into, for reasons we'll get into later. But yeah, I think that, and that's why I would really like to see them go and get another defensive midfielder that, you feel like Brian can trust and be willing to play a little more frequently.
Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of questions about the stadium / sale of the team. And I think I'm going to sort of try to kind of consolidate questions from Soccer Devil 87, Tim Hamilton, and Chris S. And essentially what they are asking about is how do we go about improving the situation at Lumen Field? I think, especially in our community, there seems to be a general sense that we don't want to leave downtown and that Long Acres is not seen as a ideal fallback option. And I think there's just a lot of frustration with the current paradigm between the Sounders being very clearly sort of second-class citizens, and now speak nothing of the Reign, while First and Goal is doing... First and Goal is having a motocross event on February 15th, which is wild to me. I am shocked that Lumen Field is even available. I would have thought that the grass installation would have already started by then, but apparently it's not. But that kind of speaks to the way First and Goal operates Lumen Field, which is they just look at, I mean, there's a weird thing. I'm sorry. There's a question here. Aaron, what would you think realistically? What can the Sounders do to help their situation at Lumen?
I think that the key thing is going to be getting First and Goal to view the Sounders leaving as a plausible threat, right? I think that it's easy for the Sounders to say, well, we're exploring this option, we're willing to do it. I think everybody at First and Goal knows Longacres is not a good solution, and knows that even Longacres is probably not a possibility with the ownership group right now and the amount of capital that's in the ownership group right now, with interest rates being the way they are, with the economy being the way it is. So I think that they have to get into a position where them saying, we will leave and we will take 40 dates a year with us, has to be a plausible threat. And I think if the Sounders can get into a situation where they're getting a better share of the revenue, where the Reign are not put into a position where they have to schedule around the Sounders to make it as cheap as possible, to where they are viewed as they're never going to be viewed as equal tenants to the Seahawks. And that's just kind of the reality, but something closer to equals, right? Not just like it feels to me ever since the separation of the business operations of the Seahawks and the Sounders, that the Seahawks have treated the Sounders like they treat motocross promoters or concert promoters or whatever, just like another tenant or whatever. And I don't think that that's a relationship that can last in that way. So the Sounders have to get a bigger share of the revenue. It's probably never going to be as good of a revenue situation, but there's got to be, a point at which everything you lose by leaving downtown, by giving up the capacity, right? Like when you do have a big game, where if First and Goal can give some, that it makes more sense to stay downtown than to leave. And I hope they can find it, because I hate the idea of building a new stadium somewhere in the city on a lot of levels, like from a non-sports perspective, because there are a lot of things the city needs more than another stadium. I hate the idea of building a stadium in the suburbs for a lot of different reasons that we've talked about on the podcast a million times before. But I also hate the idea of the Sounders being left behind because they can't compete with teams that do have better stadium situations. So yeah,
right.
It's a very tricky one.
I mean, I do think that new ownership or new money, at least, which just probably means new ownership, can do something to affect that. Because I do think that there's a numbers aspect to this that I don't know that the Sounders have ever properly leaned into. Between them and the Reign, they're bringing in, they brought in close to 1 million fans this year. They filled 40 dates on the Lumen Field calendar. I can't believe that Lumen Field is just gonna be like, oh well,
right.
It was nice having you. We'll figure it out without you. It's just not worth the trouble.
Right.
Like that doesn't seem.
I mean, I feel like the state would have to step in at that point and be like, what are you doing? Like this is, this is a huge source of revenue for the state.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird one. And the other thing I will say, one of the things I've learned in discussing all this over the years, there really aren't locations even in Seattle that are going to beat Lumen Field. Like every single location is a downgrade of some sort.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that the trade-off wouldn't be worth it. Like you could maybe talk yourself into, but like nowhere is going to be more accessible than where it is now.
Right.
I mean, people take the ferry to games.
Yeah. Including players, right?
Including players. So
anyway. I think, and that's
right.
The thing that's so tough of a selling point, I think, for the Sounders, like, is that nothing about leaving for the game day experience, or sorry, not the game day experience, but the logistical experience, right? Like maybe once you're in the stadium, you can make it a million times better, and maybe the atmosphere is better.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, it would be nice to have grass full time, right? But nothing about like, well, but you're going to have to take 3 trains now instead of 1, or you're going to have to drive to the game, or you can't take the ferry anymore, right? Like all of that stuff is just more impactful to, I think, what people enjoy. And so it's just such a tough sell, because ultimately the Sounders are right. Like we need more revenue, but ultimately that's not my problem. You know what I mean? Like you're selling me an entertainment product here. Like you needing more revenue is not relevant to me in any way. Like no other entertainment producer would try to take that tact of being like, well, we're making this change that sucks for you in most ways, but like, you know, we need to wet our beaks a little bit more, right? Like that's just not a great selling point. Whether or not it's, I mean, it's, I've totally accept that it's the reality of the situation, but it's still a very tough sell for the Sounders.
Well, let me just end this portion of the conversation on this. If someone from the Sounders would ever like to come on the show and have a open and honest conversation about the trade-offs and sell us on Longacres, they are more than welcome. We would love to hear that. And I think that is actually one of the things that is sort of acting as a dragging force on this whole thing, is that we're 2 years into the Sounders first openly acknowledging that Longacres is a viable stadium location.
Right.
We have had almost no public pitching on this. There's been no vision boarding. There's been, you know, it's just been all in the most vague terms of saying like, yeah, we think we can improve the situation if we go to Longacres, and wouldn't it be great to have grass, and wouldn't it be great to have but it's like, no, you got to sell this if you want this to work. I feel like at this point the well is becoming pretty poisoned, and it's going to be a real battle to sort of turn things around public sentiment wise.
Right.
So anyway, that's just that's my pitch if anyone is interested in listening.
Yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. So similar to the stadium topic, we got a lot of questions about Obed, and there's a lot of overlap. I want to thank Aaron R, Ken W, Jughead, and Twimberly23 for asking questions here. But the gist of these is, and so I want to clear up a couple things because these are a few things that came up in the questions. For one, Obed cannot sign a pre-contract this summer. He's not old enough to do that. So he can let his contract run out, but unless something has changed that I'm not aware of, he cannot sign a pre-contract until he's 23 years old. So that's one thing.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that
my
real?
Understanding? Like I said, maybe something changed. But my understanding is that you have to be 23 years old to sign a pre-contract. Maybe that's just a UEFA thing.
I mean, that would be a significant. Yeah. Presumably, that's where he wants to go play.
Yeah.
But anyway, go on, and I'm researching this while you.
Yeah, please do. Please fact check me on that. But that is my most recent understanding of this one, right? The other one is that the Sounders cannot unilaterally sell him to another team, right? So the Sounders can't say you aren't signing a contract and we're not getting any better offers for you, so we've accepted the T. Grace offer for however many millions it was, and you go to Mexico. They can't do that. Obed has to sign a contract. So that's just 2 points of clarification. But generally, the concern seems to be, A, do you think the Sounders would just let him walk on a free if they can't re-sign him, or if they can't find a buyer for him this winter? B, do you think there's a possibility we could get what we value him at? The Sounders could get their valuation. And if not, what do you think it would take for them to accept an offer? And C, after Obed moves to Europe, what will we call the roll down double pivot? Just so you know.
Just to throw a real,
just to end on a silly note, I suppose.
Yeah. So, best I can tell, I think you only have to be 18.
Is it 18?
To sign a pre-contract? I believe so. I don't, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the ironclad situation, but I don't know that it makes a huge, like the pre-contract aspect of it. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's really a driving force in this whole thing. Because the reality, whether he can sign a pre-contract in summer or he can wait it out until next winter, either way, he would have to play here. His contract has him playing for the Sounders through 2026, right. So he's not going to leave. But functionally, they're not going to be able to transfer him in the summer. If they don't transfer him now and they don't re-sign him, if they don't either re-sign him to a longer extension or transfer him now, that is essentially closing the books on his tie. Like the Sounders don't really have much control over what he does at that point. So I don't know if the pre-contract thing is that big of a deal. And you're right. It's important that he wants to go wherever the Sounders send him, because he needs to he's going to have to sign and he has to come to terms on a new contract with that team. Like that's just the functional reality of it. That said, I do think that the Sounders are really in a position where they have, this is going to go one of three ways. Either they're going to figure out a way to get him signed to a contract extension, and that's the one that I think most Sounders fans are hoping for, because that's the one that's going to lead to the best outcomes, especially for the Sounders. The Sounders could, if they don't sign him, I think this would probably, I would like to think that would happen early. They would figure this out early in this offseason, and then go into overdrive and tell Obed, look, we're going to try to find you the best option, but we would really like you can't do that. Like, you can't put us up against the wall here where we're risking losing you for nothing.
Right.
So I would think that they would work with his people, but be working really hard to find someone to take him off their hands. And that probably means selling him at half, a third, maybe even less. So I don't know what their internal valuation on Obed is, but let's just say it's $10 million. I would think on the high end, they'd probably say, look, if we can get $5 million for Obed, we got to take that. Which, that's a bummer. This is a player that they thought was going to be a huge transfer, and $5 million transfer is not nothing, but that's not anything crazy. Yeah. That's not a huge number in MLS anymore. And then of course there's the option where they don't move him. He doesn't agree to an extension. And then it gets interesting, because on one hand, Obed's a very good player. Why wouldn't they want Obed to help them win as much as they can? But then there's another element of, on some level, it's like almost like the cudgel they have is to say, well, we're not going to play you every week because we have to figure out what we have here. And so, sorry, Danny Leyva is getting some of your minutes. Snyder Brunell is getting some of your minutes. Alex Roldan, like you said. Yeah. I don't have a good nickname for the Roldan.
No.
The Roldans, I'm sure, is what they'll be called.
I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a relatively this is not something the Sounders have had to deal with before. Reed Baker Whiting, for instance, theoretically was in the same situation last year. They ran his contract all the way down to basically the end of the year, and then he re-signed it and was like, oh, great. But I think that's probably Reed probably had a lot less suitors than Obed presumably does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost an uncharted waters for MLS generally. Like I can't think of a ton of prospects like this that haven't been sold or stayed in the league. And I think to to some extent, right, the Sounders have a lot of blame here for letting it get to this point.
Just not getting the deal
just
done.
not getting the deal done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think really at any point before the summer I would have looked at Obed and said, that's a guy that needs to be on a max U22 deal. Like I thought very highly of him as a prospect, but he hadn't really shown the kind of consistency of playing at like a sustained high level until this summer. And that's a lot of money to commit to a guy like that. And he probably wasn't going to sign a deal that wasn't that max deal. So, and honestly, even if the Sounders had offered it to him, you know, the day of the PSG game, as soon as that game was over, maybe he still doesn't sign it. Like maybe he's just determined to move on a free. So it's a tough situation. I understand that Obed and his representatives want to do the best thing for him, and that's what they should do. But the Sounders should also do the best thing for themselves. And if that means playing a little bit of hardball and telling them, look, man, like you've got a chance to go to the World Cup. You've got a really nice contract offer on the table from us. We are motivated to sell you. We're not trying to get you to sign an extension so we can keep you forever. Like it's best for us if you move, but we need to make sure we're protecting our investment. And if you're bound and determined to walk, that's fine. But we've got to figure out what we're going to do next. And you're going to be hurting for playing time. And I don't know if that's really something you want going into the World Cup, since you're kind of on the fringes of the team anyway. You know, that's some leverage that they have. So I don't know if they would go that route. I don't know. You know, I really hope it doesn't get to that. I hope that cooler heads prevail and either Obed realizes that it's probably a little bit safer for me to sign an extension or to see what the market for me is right now and try to get a move so I can get some playing time, in the European season towards the end of the year. But it is a very,
and I think
go ahead.
And I think it's also important to point out that there are some benefits to Obed signing an extension.
Absolutely.
Like you said, the main one being there's money in his pocket.
Yeah.
Like he's going to probably get $1 million guaranteed at least for, the next 4 years. That's real money. That's life-changing money. This is, it's like 8xing his current salary. That's, and that protects him if, God forbid, he were to get an injury or whatever else. And I do think that there's, Obed's a player who's been, like I think he's looked at this like a family type situation for a long time. He came here when he was 13 years old. He knows these people very well. And I would hate for this to be a huge distraction for him as well, going into a very important year for him.
Right.
This is a really important year for him. And I would not think, I don't think it would be good for him to have this sort of uncertainty hanging over him. And in that way, I mean, I really do hope he signs a contract extension. I don't know exactly the status of that right now, but I think there are reasons to believe that it could still happen that go beyond just being Pollyannish. I think a lot of people have sort of assumed that it makes the most sense for him to just run his contract out and go somewhere on a free. There's a reason you don't see that super often, especially among younger players. And, I'm not saying that won't happen, but I just don't think it's a foregone conclusion either.
Yeah. Sorry to circle back to this, but according to what I found in the regs, the FIFA regs, he can sign a pre-contract, but if he signs a pre-contract, then the Sounders would have to get some training compensation.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it doesn't practically happen very often. And again, I could be wrong in that reading of it, but that's what it looks like to me. So
yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I would think that they would be due some relatively minimal compensation either way.
For sure.
But yeah.
But I do think it requires more if he signs a pre-contract. But like you said, it doesn't really matter anyway. If he doesn't get sold, he's gone. So
right. All right. So we got a bunch of questions about the roster, which I think we'll handle most of these individually, though. Boomstick 315. If a player is sold this offseason, netting the Sounders a big haul of GAM, who would you like to see them go after in another big time trade, similar in scale to the Jesus Ferreira move?
I think that a lot of that depends on what happens with Obed, right? If Obed is sold, or if Obed says, I'm not moving, I'm not, taking a contract somewhere else, and I'm not signing an extension. I think it makes a lot of sense to go find his replacement. I like Danny Leva a lot. I think he should get a decent number of minutes next year, but I think you could improve on Danny Leva in that spot. And you can improve on Obed in that spot too, right? Like a lot of the benefits playing Obed as many minutes as they did last year was they were trying to develop him to make a profit off of him. So I think that they could upgrade there, maybe get, somebody who's a little bit better of a compliment, maybe like not quite as samey with Christian's skill set, who offers a different dimension. Center back is another spot. I really like Yamar a lot, but I'd rather replace him too early than too late. Depending on what happens with Nuhu, maybe you could get, a left back and try to go big there. So there are options. But those seems like the only ones, right? Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't want them spending a lot on an
I would think
player.
like if there's a left back out there who would maybe be a Jesus Ferreira equivalent, maybe a Kai Wagner.
Yeah.
Or, that's probably that's like shooting the moon kind of aspiration. Andrew Gutman is someone who is a lower tier than that, but someone who I think would fit the Sounders system well.
Yeah.
He plays for the Chicago Fire. Like, I would think, yeah, left back is probably a good position to target. And if you're going to shoot for it, you may as well go high.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. They could get a U22 too. I mean, they wouldn't need to get a starter right now.
Yeah.
They could do a reverse rapids and go that route. This one's from Everett Sounder. Do you think Masovsky will be on the team next season? And if not, is Osaze ready to fill his role?
I think this is a good. My gut says they trade Masovsky, and this is the main reason why. It's not because they don't like him. It's not because they don't necessarily think what he did this year is some crazy unsustainable thing. I think it's simpler than that. And it's that he's going to be in the final year of his contract. He surely wants an extension. And unless the Sounders are willing to give him $1 million plus, which I don't think the Sounders are, I think they're inclined to find him someplace who would give him that. And so I suspect he's going to be pushing for a trade because I'm sure he wants to sign a contract extension now. Like, why would you, if you're him, this is the time that you want to sign a new contract. You just are coming off your best year ever. This is probably your last chance to get paid. What timing? Get paid. That's honestly, that's the main reason. Is I think it makes too much sense for both the Sounders and Masovsky to find another team.
Yeah, I
think Osaze is the odds-on favorite to be the fill-in.
Yeah, I'm with you on all that, and I think that this is one of the things about the Masovsky conversation that, people say, look, how are we going to replace those 18 goals? Do you think Osaze can replace those 18 goals? I mean, I don't think that he has to, right? I think hopefully Jordan Morris doesn't miss like 2/3 of the season. You don't need somebody to score that many goals. And you saw the option of going and getting the U22 if you feel like you need some more at that spot. But I really like Osaze. I think he's got a ton of potential. I was a big time Osaze skeptic, and he completely
I.
And he completely turned me around. I mean, he looks like the real deal, and I think this team creates enough chances that anybody that's out there that can get into decent positions has got a chance to score goals. So I'm excited to see what he can do with some more minutes.
Yeah. This one's from Bard. He says, Craig Weibel said he was planning on making some moves if we had done badly in the Club World Cup, which indicates that we had some room to wheel and deal. Given that that he was prepared to do that, if you had the ability to make any roster moves you wanted within the Sounders MO, what moves would you make?
I think that this is slightly different than the boomstick question because you have the ability to go outside of the league here. And I think that this is where if you want to go get a striker, I think it makes sense to go get a U22 striker somewhere outside the league, just because I think the prospects are just generally better. I think if you want to go get Yamar 2.0, it's going to be easier to get that caliber of player from outside the league playing sort of a minimal transfer fee than it would be getting them from within the league. So I think those kinds of moves, right, where there's a benefit to paying an actual cash transfer fee, are the ones I'd be looking at if they were, going to go do that somewhere.
I would like to believe that's true. I have a feeling there might not be as much money in the transfer kitty as there should be. I mean, the Sounders got $8 million or whatever from the Club World Cup. Best I can tell, that is money that is just kind of being jammed back into the organization in hard to track ways and not in transfer systems. So I don't know what the sound. I don't know what Weibel had in mind. I suspect, Yamar was probably his most tradable asset in a lot of ways, or movable asset. So I think that was probably, something like that. I'm sure Nuhu would have been very much on the block. You can kind of go down the list. If the Sounders really thought that they didn't have a run in them, there's a lot of players whose options were up this year. I think would have been players who they would have really tried to move.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
I don't know what they would have brought in, but
anyway. Maybe just a bunch of GAM and sat on that. Yeah.
Maybe. Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart podcast network, which now includes Nos Arietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible through our paid subscribers. Plans start as low as $30 a year and allow us to remain independent and mostly ad-free. Subscribers get access to all our written and podcast content, including a full-text RSS feed and a mostly ad-free podcast feed that includes every show in one spot. If you really like what we're doing, though, I'd encourage you to sign up at our higher tiers, which include all sorts of various perks. The most popular of those is our members-only Discord, where the real Sounders sickos hang out. I know I've called this group the smartest, funniest, and best-informed Sounders fans in the world, but it's more than the rough equivalent of a Sounders Mensa meeting. Discord is where we make things happen, like for real. You know the promotion the Sounders ran that offered fans the opportunity to trade in their Messi jersey for a Paul Rothrock one? That originated in our community. You'll not only be the first to know about stuff, but you also have a semi-direct line to the movers and shakers at the Sounders organization. If you want to be one of the totally normal people who occupy the Sounder at Heart Discord, just become a supporter of Sounder at Heart. Anyway, thanks for listening, and go Durs. Nos Arietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Haxon Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Haxon Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at haxonferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to haxonferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Haxon Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
This one is from Kai Fei. What are the chances Jesus gets transferred? He seems like a candidate for a budget team like Colorado or RSL to offer a lower level DP contract.
I guess it's not out of the question. I hadn't really considered him as a player who is likely to get transferred. I suspect that his he renegotiated his contract to come down off of a DP to come here. I don't know that he is, and he came here for a reason, so I don't know that he's dying to do that again. He seems happy. He seems well adjusted. I don't think the Sounders should feel, to me, like Ferreira is a player that they can sort of build around. Like he's 24 years old, I believe. He's got maybe 25 years old. He's got a few, really good. He's just right now entering his prime. I don't know why the Sounders would be trying to move him unless they are getting blown away by offers. So I suspect he's here.
Did you know that Jesus was born on Christmas Eve?
I did not.
That is extremely funny.
I wonder if that's why they named him.
I'm guessing so, but it's very funny. I was just looking up his date to see he'll be 25 on December 24th. So
no, I never clocked that.
That's very funny. Very funny. Yeah, I'm with you. Maybe somebody makes a Godfather offer, but I can't imagine a team like Colorado or RSL having the.
I mean, yeah, the Sounders would have to get more than they gave up to get him.
Yeah, and they gave up quite a bit.
So, the starting, and they gave up quite a bit. So I don't know that his value has gone up really since the Sounders got him. I think the Sounders are probably reasonably happy with what they got out of him. I just don't necessarily think that, if the Sounders were the only team willing to pay whatever it was, $3 million GAM, I don't know that there's another team out there willing to pay $4
million. Right.
But if there is,
maybe there's a European team that wants him, but seems unlikely.
I don't. Yeah, I kind of feel like that ship sailed a little bit, but we'll see. This is from Bill Jones, STRPT. Should we expect Arriola to be fit and ready for the start of next season? We saw a fair amount of formation fluidity this season. If we were to line up against peak LAFC next year with Paul Arriola in the lineup, what would your 11 look like?
I think we should expect him to be fit and ready, but I think that the level of contribution we should expect from him is not what he showed in his limited time last year, right? Like, I think that's an injury that sometimes guys come back from pretty quickly, but more typically it takes them some time to round back into form. Both times that Jordan did his ACL, I think, are great examples where he was an effective player pretty quickly after the injury, but he did not look like himself for 6 to 9 months, I think. So, I think that I hope he can contribute next year, and I think there's a good chance that he will, but I don't think we should expect him to look as good maybe as he did before his injury last year. And let's say we're playing LAFC with Paul Arriola, and he is 100%, and he does look as good as he has looked. I'm probably still have him on the bench. I don't know. I mean, it's unless you're playing 3 center backs, and then you would play him at left wing back. I think I would rather have peak Paul Arriola than Paul Rothrock at left wing back. But I think in a 2 center back setup, I don't know where you put him, assuming everybody else is healthy.
I think the other problem with Arriola in this kind of best 11 is the 4 best attacking players they have are Jordan, Ferreira, Rusnak, and De La Vega. And we never really got to solve this, but how do you get all 4 of them on the field with Arriola? I don't know if that's feasible.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're going to put De La Vega at right wing back.
Not after we've seen what he can do at left mid. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know that Arriola, as the roster is currently constructed, is a best 11 player, but things could change.
Yeah, certainly. Next one is from Maui fan.
I mean, I think.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think the best 11 is still basically what they. Honestly, is probably pretty close to what they rolled out against Minnesota.
Yeah.
In the last, or not the last 2 games, but in the first, I think maybe the first game against Minnesota is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, Pedro probably on the left, and maybe a new left back, but otherwise, yeah. And I don't think Paul Arriola is a left.
Oh yeah, Pedro. Yeah. Pedro wasn't in the game. Yeah. I guess that's a good point.
But I don't think Paul Arriola is a left back in any real sense.
No.
This one's from Maui Fan. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here. They're asking about the Sounders scouting department. Is it just Sean Henderson and Craig Weibel sitting around watching videos of players, or do they have a team that flies around the world? I assume they use a lot of data analysis, but would love to know more about how it all works. Also, I miss Chris Henderson's Where's Waldo picks. So do I. Those were a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Hey, thank you, Maui Fan.
Well, I do know that Sean definitely leaves the country to do in-person scouting a fair amount. I believe Craig does as well. You know, I know Sean was at the U20 World Cup, for instance. So they are getting outside of the country and doing in-person. They're not just doing video analysis. That said, those are the two main talent scouts as far as I know it. Henry Bronner is involved. Corey Sinzer is involved. I believe they might have a couple other people on staff. I know they have some video people on staff. So there's I'm blanking on the data analyst guy's name right now, but they have a robust team, but they do not. There was a time when they had sort of like a worldwide network of scouts that they were tapping into. I don't think that's really the case anymore. It's more in-house. But yeah, it's a lot of data analysis. It's a lot of video analysis. And then they supplement it all by going to see these players in person.
Yeah. And I think that's the way it's really kind of become over.
Tyler Cox.
Yeah.
Tyler Cox is the name of the data analyst that just came to me. But anyway,
I think that's pretty typical, right? I think a lot, especially at the MLS level, a lot of teams used to kind of outsource their scouting, and that made sense at the time because teams had fewer resources, and there are also just better scouting tools now than there used to be. Like the systems that they have access to are extremely robust, and that just didn't exist, 10, 15 years ago the way it does now. So, yeah, I think it might sound like that's a downgrade, but I think that that's actually pretty typical and to be expected and a positive thing overall.
Yeah. All right. This is from MCB. Aaron has mentioned a desire for a more physical six. How do you see that improving the team? For example, I like that the Sounders center mids don't get a lot of tactical yellows.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of it for me is having a different dimension to add to the game. I think that one of the things that the Sounders struggled with at times this year is that they didn't have a lot of ways to change things up in the center of the park. Like Danny Leyva might come in for Obed, and they're different players, but they kind of look at they play in similar ways, right? They have different skill sets, different pluses, different minuses, but at the end of the day, like they're not really tactically changing things that much when you swap out one for the other. And so I think that having like a little bit more of a harder edge to win more physical battles, if that needs to happen, like there were definitely times where we would see Obed just consistently get muscled off the ball. And so having somebody to bring in a situation like that would be helpful. Having somebody with some size would be nice, right? Like set pieces were a little bit of a struggle. So having another tall dude to throw in there might not be the worst thing in the world. And frankly, I think sometimes the Sounders need a guy who's a little bit of a dick to go out there and be a dick. Like that was one of the things that I think about Prime JP that was underrated was he wasn't a dirty player by any means, but he did not take shit. And Christian doesn't either, but he could use some backup from time to time, I think. So, yeah, just, having somebody who's not afraid to mix it up could be helpful. And having somebody that can, win physical battles, I think would have come in handy at times this year.
Yeah, I don't know that I have it was kind of addressed to you specifically, but I guess my only concern about this sort of generic desire to have a more Aussie-like six is, to me, there's an implication that player is a more limited passer, a more limited, Aussie was a really good at connecting passes, but he wasn't breaking a lot of lines. Right. He wasn't necessarily a creative attacking player. He scored his fair share of goals, but he also, I feel like he was as much known for sending shots into orbit as he was, banging in goals. So I think, to me, it's inherently a more limited player that you're talking about, but they are more physical. And I do wonder, in a system like the Sounders, from a practical perspective, it's nice to have that option, I suppose, in your toolbox, like to say we just need to bring in a guy in late in the game to help us see out a game. But is he really relieving you when you need to rotate your center mids? Like, are you going to bring in a totally different profile player? And
yeah, that's fair.
I think there's a reason I think there's a reason the Sounders haven't really had a full-blown 6 since Ozzy. Like, even Svensson was a more like nuanced player, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, when I envision the guy that fills that role, it's more of a Svensson type than an Ozzy type, right? Like it's
yeah, it would be nice to go get another Svensson.
Yeah, I mean, and I know obviously you can't do that with the budget they have for a backup midfielder, but like it's almost less about being a tenacious, physical, like hard tackler guy who's not afraid of contact, as it is just having a physical like a little bit more of a physical specimen in that space, right? But I mean, that's fair criticism, like of the idea. I do think that to say we want to be able to play our game no matter who we have to slot into the lineup is a fair point. But I still think it would be nice to to have somebody who's going to be able to mix it up a little bit more effectively sometimes. Next one is from John G. And I'm going to paraphrase this one as well. But it's really about the calendar changes and how that might affect contracts, DP strategy, right? Because currently Albert's contract is up after 2026. Does that also include the mini season in 2027? On the other side of that, are Jordan and Pedro's contracts up after the mini season in 2027, or do they end in the winter? Because I would assume now most contracts run through the end of the calendar year, right? Do they now get extended into the 2027, 2028 year? And then if Jesus has DP escalators in his current deal, if he hits those, do those take effect for the sprint season? Do those take effect for all questions that I think are probably unknowable at this time, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what that looks like.
Well, I think those are the main elements that are currently being negotiated with the players union. Is what happens to contracts that are set to expire essentially at the end of the sprint season. Right. And I suppose maybe that's what the answer is that if you're, maybe it's that simple, I suppose. Like, that is in some ways a convenient place for the contracts to end, because it does lead into, wait, is that right? No, that's not when the season would end. The season would end in the middle of
the season, right? It would end at the winter break.
The middle of the season. Yeah, you're right. So that's actually a really inconvenient place for the contracts to end.
It is, yeah.
So I would think they would have to probably come up with some sort of like almost global answer to that. Right. Like, I can't imagine they want all these players. There's I'm sure a lot of players whose contracts potentially expire in the middle of the 27-28 season. And I would imagine they're going to have to come up with some sort of fix for that. I know they're also debating how to manage time off, because what really this calendar is doing is it's shifting the complete off season from, where we have a full off season from, call it November through February or through January. And then they're sort of spreading it out. That's really what's happening, is they're spreading out the off season between the winter break and the the traditional off season. And so they're kind of managing how to mess with, what that means for vacation and things like that. So there's a lot of things that I don't think we know the answers to most of this stuff. But I do think that that's the key elements, that one of the key elements that the MLSPA is currently negotiating with.
Yeah. It feels like what it would take to get it done would be okay, everybody gets a 6-month raise or a 6-month extension unilaterally, and everybody gets for that last 6 months an X% pay bump, and then everybody also gets a bonus of some kind.
I would think you'd have to give the players an opt. Like you can either take that offer or you can opt out and say, no, I want my contract to end.
Yeah.
And I'll take my chances.
Right. Which really, if a lot of players take that option, man, that really puts some teams in trouble over the winter break. Because like if half your team says, well, I mean, I guess nobody's going to have half their team's contracts expiring, but like if your three most,
I mean, presumably they'll have this figured out
sure,
before then,
but it would be a bummer to have like your three most important players have their contracts expire and be like, well, good luck, but you know,
yeah,
how she goes, right?
All right. So this is from Professor Insufferable 74. Moving forward, should Jordan Morris continue to be the focal point of the offense, or is it wiser for the club to use him as a second striker where his passing and vision can be more maximized?
I think Jordan is a pretty good passer and he does have good vision, but I think that his primary benefit and skill set is the stuff that makes him. I think I understand what you mean by focal point of the offense, but I think Albert Rusnak is the focal point of the offense. But I think I get what you mean, right? Like he's the central, the primary scoring threat. And I think the things that make him effective there are his best skills, right? Especially because I think a lot of the stuff he does off the ball, the pressing, the stretching runs, stuff like that is stuff that's going to, he's not going to be as effective as a second forward. And
by second forward, I just want to say that I'm going to assume he means that could be like a wide player I think you're going to struggle to find a lot of second forward kind of formations.
It actually is becoming a little more common again, but it hasn't gotten to MLS yet. And as far as I know, I don't know if there are a lot of 4-4-2 teams right now in MLS. And the Sounders don't have the other guy to make that work, right? And that's the kind of the important thing. I remember there was a time earlier in Jordan's career where I thought, playing like a 4-4-1-1 with him in the hole would be his best position, but he's developed so much since then, right?
Yeah.
But if you are talking wing, I mean, look, man, we just had this conversation last year and I haven't seen anything that's going to change my mind on it. He looked pretty good on the right against Minnesota, but that was a very special circumstance. Danny Masovsky is most likely not going to be back next year. And if he is, like, are you going to bench Pedro or are you going to bench Jesus to get him on the field? So I think that Sounders are probably going to have one striker. They're probably going to have two wingers. And they're going to have Albert Rusnak, and that's going to be your front four. And I think that Jordan, Pedro, and Jesus are the best of those three. And I think Jordan is the most effective centrally of those three. So I think if you were building a team from scratch, maybe you can make a case where Jordan is not the lone forward and you can, put other players around him. But with the roster they have, I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
I would agree with that.
All right. A few miscellaneous potpourri type questions to close us out. First one's from Twimberly23. With the Sounders now out of the playoffs, will you be tuning out for the rest or will you still be watching the games? If still watching, any team you particularly like or want to root for?
I'll probably still watch I don't think I'm going to plan my weekends around MLS, but if I'm home, I will absolutely put the games on. And as far as who I'm rooting for, I kind of want the Whitecaps right now.
Yeah.
Like I think they're doing it right. I enjoy watching them play. They have likable players. I've always had a soft spot for them. I realize that's, cutting against the rivalry thing, but I think we've talked about this a lot. Yeah. It doesn't feel like that kind of rivalry. But maybe if they win, it will.
Maybe it will. Maybe. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on both counts. I will not be prioritizing the games. If the Whitecaps make the MLS Cup final, I will probably prioritize watching that. Otherwise, I'm not going to, maybe if it's a compelling game, I'll tune in. But yeah, it's not a priority for me. We watch a lot. We've watched a lot of Sounders games this year. It's a lot of time to dedicate to watching MLS, and without the emotional investment in it, it's just
this doesn't hit the
I
same.
got a garage to clean up. I got stuff to take to the storage unit. I got bamboo to cut back. I got all sorts of shit I can be doing, but definitely big time on the Whitecaps train. I think their fans deserve it. They deserve some success, and I would love to see them knock off LAFC, especially.
All right, this is from Veritatum7. Now that news is out about having 5 divisions, which teams do you think will realistically be in our division? Who would you like that to be? And do you have a name for this division?
Well, so my preference, I think, would be Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. I think that would be.
You need one more.
Right. Who was the other one that I had in the division?
Minnesota?
Yeah. I think that the downside is you still have, time zone crossover, still have a decent amount of travel, but it's not really that much more travel than going south, I suppose. And ultimately it's not that, like, it's one extra game a year and you have to play everybody anyway. So really it's barely any more travel, no matter which division you're in. So I like the idea of that one. And I like it less specifically because of the Sounders and more because it makes the rest of the divisions make a lot more sense. And then obviously I would call that the Northern Division or something, boring like that. But it sounds like to me that they're potentially not necessarily going with like geographical or purely geographical divisions, or like they're trying to keep rivalries together, and that's priority one, and then whatever else they have to do to make the rest of it work is what they'll do, in which case maybe they can do the old school like NHL divisions, and they could have like the, I don't know, like the Garber division and the Hunt division.
Yeah, there you go.
That kind of stuff. I actually do kind of like that idea. I think that would be fun because I don't think the divisions are going to last that long, right? I think eventually they're going to go back to conferences. So have some fun with it,
Yeah. The last thing I heard is that the Sounders might get paired up with the 3 Texas teams.
That would be so annoying.
That'd be pretty bad. Yeah. They would have to come up with a good name to make that
the Civil War division.
Right. Yeah. That would I don't love that. That's probably, of all the possibilities I've heard, that was the one that bugged me the most. Yeah. But
yeah.
I would like there to be a West Coast division. Let us have 7 teams.
Yeah. I agree. Why not? Who cares? Like, it doesn't really, I guess it would mess up the play in every other team.
It would mess it up, but
whatever. It's fine. We can play 2 more games or whatever. It would be it's fine. This one's from the Joshua. Who decides what kits are being worn? There are a few times this year where colors normally worn looked like the opposite team was wearing each other's kits. There's another question about the playoffs, but
as far as I know, the league picks the kits. I'm pretty sure the league just picks the kits, and that's why sometimes it seems a little nonsensical. But I think that there used to be a time when I think the home kit manager chose them, and then they did away with that.
Yeah,
it's my understanding.
Yeah, that's interesting then, because like you would expect that they would. It just seems like the timing of them picking the kits. I mean, I'm sure the Sounders could be like, "Hey, it would make sense for us to wear this kit tonight," or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on that, but that was my. I don't know.
Maybe
I should have done some more research on this.
I wonder if the red card wedding was them saying, all right, we're just going to pick this. I mean, I know that was Open Cup, but when the Sounders had to come out in the second half.
Yeah, I don't actually remember how that went down. All right. This is from Andrew. Says it's 2033. So a year after the Sounders lease expires at Lumen. What's most likely? Lumen and Hanauer is still I assume meaning they say he might still be in the team, but he's no longer the primary owner. So the choices are Lumen and Hanauer, Lumen and no Hanauer, not Lumen and Hanauer, or not Lumen and not Hanauer?
Oh man, I've been thinking about this one for a couple days actually, and I still haven't made up my mind. But I'm going to go with my gut and just say Lumen and not Hanauer. It seems increasingly clear that the level of capital you have to be a majority owner in MLS is getting uncomfortable. And the league has grown. I mean, when the Sounders came in 2009, Adrian was still not super wealthy by the by the standards of MLS owners. Now he's gotten significantly more wealthy in that time, in large part thanks to the Sounders. But at a certain point, like when a lot of your net worth is your equity in the team, it's kind of understandable to be like, well, I don't want to, blow all of this on the team. So I get it. Like, I mean, I don't get it. I will never understand having that kind of money, but I think I understand the impulse. So I think the odds of him being the majority owner for another 10 years are low. I think the odds of him still being extremely involved in the team are very high. Because when he was the minority owner, it felt like he was still sort of he
was the GM.
Right, he was. And it just felt like he was calling a lot of the shots where the club was concerned, like culturally and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's going to be involved with the club in a big way for a very long time. But I think that the odds of him being the majority shareholder, past 2020, 2032 are low. But I think Lumen makes too much sense to completely give up on. And I hope they're able to figure something out there.
Yeah, I don't want to discount the possibility that a new owner will come in and become smitten with the idea of building their own stadium out at Long Acres, but my gut tells me that Lumen remains a very high likelihood because there's a lot of unchanged, like frankly unchanged, like they say location is the biggest part of real estate, and Lumen has that in spades. And I tend to think that if some new person comes in, they're going to look at this situation and say, we got to figure this out.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
We'll
and I also think that the possibility of the Seahawks are going to be sold before then, almost certainly. And I don't think it's at all out of the question that they're going to say we're moving to Kent, because people will come to our games no matter what. We can be wherever we want to. So I don't think that's that crazy possibility either. This one's from Fraggle. Why have we not declared 7/16 to be Roll Down Day? Feels like a long missed opportunity.
I agree. Unfortunately, that's going to be probably, that could end up being right around the beginning of the season in a future era. But yeah, I think that I'm going to run that up the flagpole. I like that idea. 7/16 Roll Dawn Day.
Oh, it's
especially if it's
National Corn.
Is it a Saturday this year?
Is it? Let's see.
Oh,
well, it's National Corn Fritters Day.
Oh, well, it's already a declared holiday.
It's it's Artificial Intelligence Appreciation Day. I don't know about that. National Cherry Day. All right, that's all the interesting ones.
Yeah. All right. We're going to close out with Chriso. By the time the mailbag episode is recorded, we should know the players the team options are picked up and who is declined. So I want to ask about Kenton Fry. Instead, I won't ask about Kenton Fry. Instead, what's your go-to comfort food, meal, beverage in the winter months? This is an old school question. We used to get stuff like this all the time.
This used to be like
perfect.
The question we ended with every week was some variety of this.
I know. So thank you, Chris. So I don't know if you did that on purpose. But that was great.
Blast of the past. So I'll say that I love like very simple stews and stuff like that this time of year. Like it's like tonight I made a huge ass pot of chickpeas with chicken sausage and chard, and I'm going to be eating that for all week and feeling great every night that I do it. Man, I've been drinking a lot of Guinness lately. That's a hell of a beer.
Whoa.
It's a hell of a beer. We were out on Friday night, and I was like, man, I really want a Guinness right now on draft. I know we have the cans at home, but I want one on draft. And so we walked all the way up and down 6th Avenue, like trying to find a place that had it. And we finally did, and it was worth it.
Was there not? I guess it used to be Guinness was like everywhere. It felt like.
Yeah, it's weirdly kind of hard to find. It feels like like a lot of the bars on 6th Ave are either like craft beer bars or cocktail bars or just kind of like divey in a way that wouldn't necessarily support Guinness. But yeah, and it was great. It was so worth it. It's a great beer. It doesn't have a lot of calories in it. It's perfect this time of year.
I believe technically a light beer, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's like 110 calories. It's crazy. One of my other favorite beers,
like 4% ABV.
Miller Lite. It's only like 10 more calories than a Miller Lite, which feels crazy when you're drinking it because it feels like so substantial. But yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Oof. I used to be a big time Guinness guy.
Yeah, I burned myself out on it when I was younger, and have come back to it in a big way.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's I am going to share a little anecdote from today because I thought this was really. I've made a couple. I made a pot roast the other day. That's
a great one.
I gotta say yeah. Pot roast, underrated, classic. I would highly recommend doing a pot roast at some point to anyone who's listening to this who's maybe like, oh, that's a boring suggestion. Yes, but it works. It's so good. But so I'm sure you've seen this trend if you're on social media of the lasagna soup, and it looks so good.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to make it for a long time. So I made it today, and it started off, it was great. And then I realized that the pasta was soaking up a lot of a lot. Like
right.
I used actually less pasta than the recipe called for, and I used more liquid, and it sucked it all up. It was just a mushy mess. And I got to tell you, I might do it again, but if I were going to do a lasagna soup again, what I would do is I would toast the pasta or fry the pasta so that it has a little bit more resiliency to the soaking. But also, you almost immediately have to serve it as soon as it reaches like al dente. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into goop.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like one you could batch, really, for sure. Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's a big part of the appeal of making a big ass pot of soup or chili or stew or whatever. Is I can eat this for 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I did make a pot of chili a while back that was as good as any chili I've ever. Like, I think it was a Kenji.
Yeah. Did you do the Marmite in there?
I did not use the Marmite. No, but I know that's one of his savory suggestions.
It's pretty goated doing the Marmite in there. I mean, it's I've done it in the chili and it's great, but it's more. I didn't have any, or I would have put it in the
fish sauce.
Fish sauce is good. I mean, it's that concentrated umami, right? They're serving the same purpose, but
yeah.
But yeah, I recommend the Marmite. It's good. It's not. I don't like the stuff. Like, I'll never put it on toast and eat that. But as just a umami bomb in the background of a stock or something like that, it's great. Yeah. This is my favorite time of year for cooking and stuff. Like, I love grilling and I know I love food in the summer too. I mean, I love food all year round, but this is the time where I get really excited about cooking, every night.
Yeah. Now that you're mentioning it, I guess I've been cooking a lot more lately.
Yeah.
And I suspect it's because the weather has changed and it's just so much more fun to cook when the weather's like this.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing a brisket for Thanksgiving this year. So I've been trying different techniques and stuff, and I'm excited to see how that comes out. So
I've still never done a brisket. I gotta give that a try sometime.
You've never done a brisket?
No, it's such a commitment. It's like a pork
It is a
shoulder.
big
A
commitment.
pork shoulder, you can be reasonably sure you get up early enough, you get it on there early enough, it's going to be done at a reasonable hour. A brisket, you've got to go overnight sometimes, or you've got to hold it overnight maybe if you do it. It's a lot.
Yeah,
but
so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cook it mostly the day before, and then I'll finish it finish it the day.
I think
of,
that's the move. Yeah.
Anyway, well, Aaron, it's been a blast.
It has. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be back recording again and not too far, but I don't know when. This is the last scheduled show we have for a while. We'll of course be back if there's any big news. And this was a lot of fun. I know we kind of did a farewell thing last time, so I won't overdo it, but this I think we recorded the most episodes we've ever recorded in a single year.
I think that's probably true. Yeah, we made a commitment, I think, this year before the year started to get a show out every week, and with the two of us, or we had some wonderful guest hosts as well.
Did some fill-ins.
We missed a couple weeks, but there weren't many. So
if maybe a couple at most.
Yeah. And there's always stuff on the feed too, right? So it's not just this show.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, we did a good job, but it was fun. As always, it was fun.
I think this year was the first time I really started to appreciate how much more of a reach this show has than any given article I write.
Yeah.
Like obviously the article, like the articles that we have that sort of explode have a higher reach than, episodes that we do here. But, we've had some episodes that have done pretty big numbers, and the average episode just is listened to by so many more people than the average article at this point.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like I think I've this year grown to appreciate how much more intimate it is for people to spend this much time with us.
Yeah. It's probably not a good thing to think too much about, but
no, but so thank you to everyone who keeps listening to us. Yeah. And I hope, and I don't take it for granted that people are welcoming us into their headphones or whatever. And, I've really enjoyed this year. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you to everyone, and hopefully people that are listening to this want to come hang out with us in the Discord and support what we're doing. And, we'll have, I'm sure we will be around. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. All right. Well, I think with that, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Full Pool Wines and Hacks and Ferments. I also want to say again, thank you to our listeners for doing this, for making this work. Thank you, Aaron Lickett. I'm Jeremiah O'Shan, signing off for Nos Audietis, which is part of the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. And remember, you'll never get alone.
Let's go Sounders.